there was a guy who was saying how if Biden chose to do a ceasefire, he's actually going to turn off his base. He was making a point to say it's crazy the framing that we keep hearing as if a ceasefire is going to solve all his problems. But if you ceasefire, then people on the other side. But that is simply not true. There's something like 80% of Democrats who support a ceasefire and half of Republicans. And that's to the point of this tweet from Corey Bush. The majority of voters in the world all agree we need a ceasefire. And this is just a poll indicating those numbers. And I spoke to it. I said 80% of Democrats. The exact number is 77% of Democrats. So rounding up 80%, 70% of independents, and 56% of Republicans. So if somebody tells you, well, if we do a ceasefire, then he's going to lose the other side. No, it's not. 80% of Democrats want it, 70% of independents, and 60% of Republicans. So don't let anybody, and here's a receipt on that. Voters continue to support the U.S. calling for a permanent ceasefire and de-escalation of violence in Gaza. And that is the poll. You can screenshot that if you're watching. Here's another one. Now, this is where it hit the 100 mark, and it's at 101,000. 101,000, 13%. This is when it was at, is this 90%? I can't tell. It's real small in that graphic there. Let's move to the next item here. Now, this is a Democratic rep who's now reacting to the number being 100,000. So we've seen a lot of conversation and reaction as the count is going on, when it's at 20,000, when it's at 40,000, when it's at 50,000. Now let's see the reaction when it's at 100,000, because now it's undeniable.
On the heels of this Michigan primary, this is a huge issue. This was a huge issue for Democrats. More than 100,000 voting uncommitted. That is significantly more than we have seen in the past in Michigan primary. Does that make you nervous for President Biden?
No, I think that it's still early. I think that the people don't know. I wish folks knew what I know when I know how hard he's working behind the scenes. Diplomacy is hard. And just having the status quo, just having a ceasefire and going back to what was is not good enough for President Biden. What President Biden wants to do is to have a different Middle East where you have a two-state solution where the people of Israel can live in peace and the Palestinians can live in peace and have their own governing boards. That's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes hard work. And I think that that's what he's trying to accomplish. And I think that's what the people of Michigan really want. They don't want occupation in Gaza. They want to have an independent state side by side. That's hard work. It's not a quick fix. And that's what the Biden administration is not trying to just do a quick fix. They're trying to make a change that will benefit both the people of Palestine, the Palestinians, as well as the Israelis.
Congressman Greg Meeks, thank you so much for coming in today.
So Greg Meeks wants us to believe the reason we have 30,000 dead bodies is because it's complicated to get shit done. That's what he wants us to believe. We can't create this one-state solution overnight. This hasn't been going on just for several months, Congressman Meeks. This has actually been going on for decades through several presidents. So if you think that the situation in Palestine, occupied Palestine, is going to be negotiated during an 8-year period or a 4-year period of a presidency, it's not. It should have happened over decades. But you can't want a two-state solution and at the same time fund the people who are committing a genocide, who is committing an apartheid state. That's what you can't do, because you're putting your eggs in a basket to keep this status quo going, but you're projecting that you want the status quo to go away. Doesn't work that way. Let's continue with the next video here. We're just going down the line. Listen to this. Listen to this. This is a very short one. So this is CNN, who sees what's happening in Michigan, the uncommitted vote, and they're frustrated. Damn, what else can we do? Like, what's wrong with these young people? What's wrong with these guys? What else do you want? We're doing this, we're doing that. So he is frustrated that young people aren't falling in line because Joe Biden did so much for them. And I guess he listed it. Let's listen to what he lists here.
But it was also the college counties, like around Ann Arbor, that you had high numbers of people voting uncommitted. What can President Biden do in terms of outreach to younger voters that he hasn't done already? I mean, he's already forgiven all the student debt that he can. He's already showing up on Seth Meyers and TikTok. How does he reach the younger crowd? But it was also the college counties, like around Ann Arbor, that you had.
Isn't that insulting? How do we reach young people? $35 minimum wage, $17-20 trillion investment in climate, money out of politics, end the genocide, wipe out all student debt. But he says he's already been on Seth Meyers and he's on TikTok. Is that serious?
At high numbers of people voting uncommitted. What can President Biden do in terms of outreach to younger voters that he hasn't done already? I mean, he's already forgiven all the student debt that he can. He's
already forgiving all the student debt that he can. You have to include that he can. You know what that amount of student debt is? It's something like not even 5% of what needs to be canceled.
He's already showing up on Seth Meyers and TikTok. How
he's showing up on Seth Meyers and TikTok? So why don't you come vote for Genocide Joe? What is this?
How does he reach the younger crowd? But it was also the college county.
Anyway, I let it loop twice. Let's move to the next thing. That is astonishing to me. Let's listen to Pramila Jayapal talk about the protest vote as it's happening yesterday. Let's listen to her. This is on MSNBC.
When 74% of Democrats in Michigan support a ceasefire, yet President Biden is not hearing us. This is the way we can use our democracy to say, listen to Michigan, listen to the families right now that have been directly impacted, but also listen to the majority of Americans who are saying enough. No more wars. No more using our dollars to fund a genocide.
But Congresswoman Tlaib wasn't alone among voters using their vote as their voice in today's primary.
I want President Biden to take us seriously, talk about the subject more seriously.
I'm hoping that it will tell the Democratic Party that they are making terrible decisions.
I voted uncommitted to let Joe Biden know that we do not support genocide.
I'm not so happy with how our government is running the foreign policies. Just the fact that over 10,000 children have died in Gaza. It's unnecessary and needs to be stopped. There should be a ceasefire.
No candidate will receive our votes if they continue to support genocide in Gaza.
Joining me now is former Michigan Congressman Andy Levin and Dana Williams, Dean of the Graduate School and Professor of African American Literature at Howard University. Thank you both for being here. I would normally do ladies first, but I do want to go to you first, Andy Levin. Talk about this protest vote. How large do you expect it to be? And what is the message that's being sent to President Biden? Is it not getting these votes in November or something else?
Hi, Joy. Well, it's great to be with you. The message is that we need this horrible war to end right now. People here are so upset about it. Yes, Arab Americans, Muslims more broadly, people of color, young people, a lot of the president's base, we're just beside ourselves here at the carnage in Gaza. It has to end, and that's the message they're sending. There are over 8 months, Joy, between February 27th and November 5th. So we're not talking about November 5th now, but I'm very worried about November 5th if he doesn't change course. So this is a huge message to him to change course, because you cannot get reelected as president of the United States without winning Michigan. And you can't win Michigan with this many of your base members upset.
And very quickly, what do you guys expect? Do you have an estimate? Because I know 10,000 votes was the goal, but there have been protest votes in every primary. It happens all the time. What would be considered victory for you all?
I think 10,000 votes is great. I think we're now expecting to get at least one uncommitted delegate to the.
They're looking at right now 3 uncommitted delegates. So in any county in Michigan, if you reach 15%, you get a delegate. And there's 3 either counties or regions. I forget how they use the word they use to label it, county, regions, districts, one of those, where it has reached 15%. One of which is where Dearborn, the city of Dearborn, is located. And then it's the city right next, or the district right next to Dearborn, that has a higher percentage. Both of those, one is like at 17 point something percent, and the other one's at 18%. And then there's another one that's in the 15. So there's 3 right now that is 3 delegates that the uncommitted could receive right now. Or last time I checked is how I should phrase it.
To the convention, and I think there may be more than that in Michigan's rules. If you get 15% of the vote in a congressional district, you get 1 delegate. So I think it's going to be a very successful night tonight. I tell you what, Joy, my biggest fear is not that so many people come out and President Biden, it's seen as like, oh my gosh, so many people are voting uncommitted. My fear is that people stay home. And he doesn't get the message, because I don't think he can win in November here unless he changes course.
So let's talk about this, because Professor Williams, there's 2 pieces of what you have to do to win Michigan. You need a robust vote among the air.
So this young lady comes on to talk about polling she did through Howard University in Michigan about the Black vote, and it's specifically about the Black vote. And it's just a lot of information that they gathered from this polling. And I actually briefly covered this polling a couple of days ago, part of another segment. But let's listen to what she says here.
The Arab American community, it's about 100,000 people, but also the African American community. You're talking about, you really need Detroit to come out, right? So let's talk about this. Howard University, you all did something through Impact Research, a poll that talked about what Black voters think. What did you find in terms of the feelings about President Biden and Donald Trump?
We're looking at all Black voters, which is unique in and of itself. So it gives us the opportunity really to do an analysis at a really more intentional and complex level. So what we found, interestingly enough, was that the contemporary polls don't bear out exactly what we bear it out in terms of like where the support is. Some of the things, broad strokes, are absolutely true. There are some instances where Black women are still the stronghold. Black women are committed to the Democratic Party. But what we're also seeing is that Democratic voters are far more liberal if they are Black. And it doesn't matter what part of the state that they're in. So their concerns have shifted a little bit. And we asked them questions like, over the last 5 years, how have your politics shifted? And overwhelmingly, they've shifted to
the left.
That's right.
Let's go through some of these numbers really quickly. Joe Biden getting, in this poll of Michigan, Black Michigan voters, 49% of the vote. Trump seemed high to me at 26%. Did that surprise you? And 9% for Kennedy.
It did, but I think there are a number of reasons that we can begin to think about that. It's a little bit higher in Michigan than it was when we did the national poll, which will focus on Super Tuesday coming forward. But those numbers.
I'm going to go back to that graphic there. 1 second here. This graphic. Black Michigan voters, Joe Biden, 49%, Donald Trump, 26%, RFK, 9%, Marianne Williamson, 7%, and the guy who's Black and talks about racism as the cornerstone of his fucking politics comes in at 3% with Black voters. Fuck out of here. 2% higher than Nikki Haley. Jill Stein, 1%. Dean Phillips, 1%. And Jill Stein got to get that number up. Jill Stein can't be in polling at 1%. with the voters, but black voters. But let's
that surprised you, and 9% for Kennedy.
It did, but I think there are a number of reasons that we can begin to think about that. It's a little bit higher in Michigan than it was when we did the national poll, which will focus on Super Tuesday coming forward. But those numbers vary based on religious affiliation,
sure,
based on the issues that they identify with. So if you're asking folks who identify more with threats to democracy, the numbers shift just a little bit. We were a little bit concerned.
Yeah, that it's that high. The other piece is that Black Michigan voters, reasons that you wouldn't vote, don't like the candidates, yep, don't think it matters, don't think it changes anything, and what would actually...
And that is the same reasons everybody, not just Black voters. Now, this lady is a person who works for Howard, and it was specifically about Black voters. But look at this. 34% don't like the candidate. 34% don't think that it matters. And 26% think their vote changes, don't think their vote changes anything. All of these reasons are great reasons. All of these reasons we've all felt at some point, whether you're Black or not. And what RBN is saying, speaking to this, is that nothing will change. Your vote doesn't matter, and these candidates are all the same. So why are you wasting so much time and energy on that? We don't say completely divest from electoral politics. We say participate in electoral politics by way of independent and third parties. And you should think about elections, you know, very minimal. The rest of it is community work. The rest of it is providing material goods and services to the community.
To get you to vote, which I thought was really fascinating. 18% saying, seeing that my vote will change my life for the better. That does seem to be an important thing.
It is, because we are also trying to understand why people are making certain decisions. Our big thing really is getting people out to vote. It's nonpartisan, so we really want to know what would make a difference and where are we failing with messaging, because part of what we want to be able to do at Howard.
Where are we failing with messaging? That lets you know this Black face is doing the same thing that a white face would do. Trying to gain information about a target audience that you can use to manipulate them without delivering nothing. That's what messaging means.
Howard, and with this public opinion initiative, very especially, is to make sure that we know that our voices are being heard.
And we've got last one, the concerns about Biden voters' age. It did show up.
Yes.
With Trump, it's morals, ethics, and his track record.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, an obvious one. We're all very endeared to our elders in every way, but the reality is people are concerned about the age. What we didn't show as much as the concern about like the replacement. So I think Black folks are still very comfortable with Kamala Harris.
And last question, did Gaza come up in the poll?
It didn't as much as we imagined that it would. We did ask the question very explicitly. We know that there are affinity groups and that Black folks relate very specifically to to Arab Americans in Michigan. But the biggest number still for Black folks were the economy, economy and jobs, which suggested that there's still a messaging problem because it's a strong economy. And the unemployment rate is high. So
it still suggests that there's a messaging problem, even though my rent is high. Food prices are high, but it's a messaging problem. You see the issue here? Pollsters are just gaining information for people, for the establishment to use to manipulate you, not at all to deliver on what you want or need. And just quick note, that is what it looks like in Arizona. Registered voters. Biden is in a fucking heap of trouble. I'm going to skip up here to some other items here. Now, I just want to show you a couple of reaction here. Where am I? This one. This one here I'll read. This is from Saba. I think this is the lady, the young college student that came on, that went viral for being on CNN. And then she came on with Nick in Rome on a stream. This is her, Saba. And let's read what she says. Over 100,000 uncommitted vote on the Democratic ballot and over 33,000 on the Republican. So understand, there was 33,000 who voted uncommitted in Republicans. Thank you, Michigan. As a Palestinian, thank you. Seeing these numbers is a indescribable feeling. You stood up for us. The fight just started. See you in November, Joe, or not. And it's just showing a meme of Kamala Harris saying, "We did it. We just did it, Joe. We got 100 uncommitted votes." It's a play on the picture she did before. And then here is Professor Zankas here, or Zankas, and he says 100,000 uncommitted votes in Michigan, 100,000 Democrats standing against a president who for 4 months has given Israel every weapon they've asked for as they've buried thousands of children under rubble. So that was his reaction. All right, just a couple of more. Here is a comparison. This is Nina Turner's tweet. This is a comparison of past years where there was an uncommitted vote. So let's look at the last couple of years, last couple of cycles here with this tweet with Nina Turner. Michigan, 2024. I'm sorry from the top. Okay, Michigan, 2012 uncommitted, 20,833. That's the one they keep referring to in video. I think when the upcoming video is going to show that. 2016, 21,601. 2020, 19,106. And then 2024, 100,000. So if you were to take out 20,000, which is the norm for various reasons, you got to attribute at least 80,000 votes to uncommitted above the normal threshold that you would see for this. So that is the numbers. Now let's go to this next part. Oops, I want to actually play this video first. Now let's talk about specific counties so we can see the breakdown, because in Dearborn, I think Dearborn is the only one, or maybe it's Wayne County, where there was more votes for uncommitted than there were for Joe Biden. Let's listen to this short snippet that talks about it.
This is what Joe Biden received. Again, forgive me, 1,141 votes. Dean Phillips, 54 votes. And uncommitted, make sure I get this right, 3,703 votes. So that's a wow. If you look at it this way, this is 23%. And this is 75%. And so this is just the city of Dearborn, but that is where the biggest pocket of the Muslim American, the Arab American population. This is a place President Biden carried big time in 2020. This is key to his chances of defeating Donald Trump in Michigan again. This is what Joe Biden received.
No, they cut it off, but I'm going to go back just to the graphic here. Biden, Phillips, uncommitted. Now, they flipped the number. Oh, no, that's right. Yeah, because the wording, that's where I'm looking at. It says uncommitted with Dean Phillips' face, and it says Dean Phillips with the blanked out. So it says Dean Phillips here, but this is uncommitted. And it says uncommitted here, but this is Dean Phillips. Just wanted to clarify that part there. And let's go to another part that I have, and that is that this is one of the last videos, and it's uncommitted on the ground bookmark, and I got a couple of other items to show you, but let's listen to this one.
Racina's Omar Jimenez is in Dearborn, Michigan, where actually in Dearborn proper, uncommitted got more votes than President Biden.
That's right. I mean, look, here in Dearborn's home to one of the largest Arab American communities in the country, and the Vote Uncommitted movement was led by Arab American activists over their disagreement with how President Biden is handling the Israel-Hamas war. And as you mentioned, yes, when you look at unofficial results coming from the city of Dearborn, Uncommitted beat Joe Biden 56% to 40%. Now, that's within a total of 11,000 votes. But when you expand that data countywide here, that number is over 25,000. And when you look statewide, over 100,000 people voted uncommitted. Now, President Biden still did win this primary by a large margin, but when you look at the margin that he won Michigan by in 2020, that was around 150,000. So obviously a sizable margin there. And the goal of those that were leading this uncommitted movement was to send a message that President Biden needs to be doing more to push towards a permanent ceasefire. And you read some of the senior campaign advisor reaction we're getting in, saying that they share the goal of many who voted uncommitted to work toward a lasting and just peace. But moving forward, obviously, this is a message that was sent. On the Republican side.
Yeah. All right.